Guys, welcome back. Video 2 on its way. I am so excited about this journey with you guys. So in order for you guys to walk with me on this lectin-free lifestyle, combined with intermittent fasting, use the sunlight, and adequate sleep, I have to take you guys back to the basics. That means let's talk life. What is the basic unit of life? This has been known or called a cell. A cell is the smallest unit that can sustain life. Now, that means that would be a single-celled organism, which we have, and those are divided into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now, these single-cell organisms, what that means is that they can sustain life just themselves. That one cell is doing reproduction, it's doing feeding, it's doing energy production, it's doing it all. It doesn't need anything else. It can live, multiply, and die. Multicellular organisms, like us, have multi-cells that do life, right? So we have cells that do energy production or movement, like muscle cells. We have our heart cells that are pumping that. We have blood cells that are moving nutrients. We have sex cells that are producing for reproduction. So we have different cells that are doing different parts of life. They're separate from each other. They're they produce organs and they're doing different jobs within the multicellular organism. We can't just have heart cells and that do life. It needs everything else. We work as a whole system. We cannot separate ourselves. Now, bacteria, which is a pretty popular thing nowadays. We're all talking about your gut bacteria and all of that. Bacteria is actually a single-celled organism, which means that a bacteria all by itself can do life. It doesn't need anything else to reproduce, eat, live, die, all right? It can live without anything else. So when we talk about bacteria and our gut microbiome, I want you guys to understand that we have so many of those within us, right? And that they're living life. They are literally life within us. So keep that one in mind. We'll keep talking a little bit deeper into that. But the other thing that we believe to have been a bacteria is mitochondria. It is believed that it was a parasitic bacteria that had the capability of entering a cell, and that's how we ended up with a cell having a mitochondria inside of it. Mitochondria is known to be the energy producing part of the cell. We still know this, but we are finding out that instead of multicellular organisms, which have other organelles within their cells, like mitochondria and the nucleus, which contains your DNA, we're finding out that even though we used to think that the nucleus is what was driving the show within the cell, we're starting to find out that actually mitochondria might be the one that's sort of running the show. We're going to go into detail a little bit further later on that one. But I want you guys to keep in mind how science does change and studies show us different things, and we have to be open-minded enough to be able to look at it all and understand it from a different perspective once new information comes out. So keep that in mind. Now, multicellular organisms like us not only contain organelles like mitochondria and the nucleus, but like I mentioned before, we have specialized cells. So we can have brain cells, muscle cells, sex cells, and all of those. And those give us sort of an advantage to a certain degree, but that doesn't happen without maybe a mitochondria actually invading our previous one-celled organisms and allowing us to produce all of this energy within us and actually even store it so that we can use it for later usage. So remember, mitochondria, energy-producing cells, they turn nutrients into byproducts, and those byproducts then are turned into energy, which we use, which that is named ATP. All right, so keywords that I want you guys to sort of keep in mind. Bacteria, single-celled organisms, all right? Mitochondria, energy-producing organelles within cells. Remember, they were previously bacteria, so they did life all on their own. And you might ask, why go back to the beginning, Erica? Why go all the way back to all this information? The reason is because I want everybody that's watching, I want you guys to understand that our cells work, they are driven by organisms that have lived on this planet for estimates of over 419 billion years. All right, so they have been around, the bacteria, the single cell organisms, they have been around for over 419 billion years. And the longest estimate that I could find for humans, or whatever that human version that we are agreeing on, was the start, which is completely different to what we are now. That's only 6 million years being on Earth. So when we think we know, I want us to go back to the fact that these little bacterias, which are single cell, which means they're the basic unit of life, which means they do life without us, they have been around for 419 billion years. So we need to show respect, and we need to go back to the basics of them in order for us to work well, because they are the ones that are driving our cells. Not only ourselves, but as we get in deeper, we'll understand that they are driving our gut microbiome as well, in the absorption of nutrients or non-absorption, so that we can understand how the inside of our body is responding. We have to understand the basics of these cells, or these organelles, or these bacteria, and how they work, why they work, how they got there. All right, so that's why I wanted to go back to the basics. For bacteria to work well, for mitochondria to work well, we're going to need to address sunlight, fasting, sleep, and also the removal of those lectins. And we'll go into lectins probably next time, but remember that lectins are the ones that are, well, part of what's damaging our gut microbiome, or our gut lining. So they are causing what's called leaky gut. So we'll get into that next time, but those pillars are the ones that I'm going to focus on, because in order to achieve good health, we have to make sure that we are getting the right information to the bacteria and the mitochondria. And in order to do that, we have to prevent toxins coming inside. So healing a leaky gut is extremely important in order for the rest of it to work. So stick around. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about what are lectins and a little bit more on gut microbiome. But before I got there, I really wanted to go way back and talk a little bit about where we came from, in a sense. So if you have any comments, any questions, comment below, send me messages, send me emails, tell me what you want me to talk about more if I didn't go in depth enough about these topics. And if I gave you more questions, let me know about those too. All right, guys, see you later.